All of the 5 minutes that were spent in Frontier Unlocked yesterday talking about Elite were spent talking about the Panther Clipper Mark II, which on one hand is understandable as developers got to eat like everybody else, and the Panther Clipper Mark II promises to be the cash cow of the game in the foreseeable future. It's great that there's an enormous amount of excitement and hype, and it's understandable that they do want to hype that ship even further to support their business. On the other hand, possibly the bigger change that was just recently introduced in the game, but more foundationally altered the way the game works in ways that a single ship kindly doesn't do, is the recent Megapatch that was applied to Trailblazers, and which fundamentally changes the way colonization works and markets work in the game. And first and foremost, credit to the developers for giving it a shot. It's good that they heard us on a number of dimensions. It's good that they heard us that the way markets economies needed tweaking. It's good that they heard us that we needed more information, and we'll get into that in a moment. And it's good that they heard us that a lot of the things that currently were happening in the game needed fixing, including a number of the other things that we're talking about. So great to see a response. It's bittersweet to say that the swing they took was only partially successful. And as a result, there's probably going to be another patch needed to ultimately fix colonization in a way that is sustainable in the game going forward. And I'll explain in a moment why that is the case. So for this mega patch, there's good news, there's bad news, and there's a number of other public service announcements that are neither good or bad, are just informational in nature, plus a number of things that we're still confirming and that we don't have specific information at this time. What are the good news? Possibly the most impactful and meaningful, good, if not even great news, is that the stutter bug, the infamous stutter bug that resulted in your game stuttering 5 minutes on the hour and people going crazy and pulling their hair out thinking their GPU was on fire or CPU was thermal throttling, is reportedly fixed. You're welcome to celebrate. You're welcome to kind of pop champagne bottles or whatever it is you want to do to kind of like celebrate the disappearance of a stutter bug. But this is possibly the most consequential bug that had been introduced with a power play update, which was affecting everyone and was kind of making the game experience pretty miserable. That appears to be gone. So hooray, and well done FDev in nailing that one. It is a huge win for the game as a whole. Furthermore, the feedback on the Corsair has been heard, and the latest reports coming in suggest the heat capacity of the Corsair has been increased from the Imperial Quarter value of 230 all the way up to 275, which is still slightly short of the Crate Mark II, which has 300 as a value, but it's significantly closer, and it is a lot better than the original Imperial Core value for a ship that is like 10 times the mass and with a lot more heat generating things. So the Corsair performs a lot better. Not that it needed to, because it's already performing amazingly well, but these heat changes have made it an even better ship and kindly an even better buy. So if you were on the fence and like heat was one of the things that was holding the ship back, that issue has been reduced significantly, and the ship performs a lot better from a heat standpoint with the changes that they introduced. They completely reworked the way markets connect, and there's now a link system between facilities and ports, which is rather, if not very, complicated. Galnet News Digest has a very good video that explains the foundationals and basics of how that works. If you want to get your sort of feet wet in terms of appreciating how that works, that is where I would point you to get an understanding of how the system as a whole is designed to work. I am holding off doing an in-depth version of that until we finally nail down all of the math and the specific aspects of how it actually works, including a few situations where it's not working as intended. We'll get to that in a moment. stay tuned for that one as we will publish it when it's ready, like when we have all that information. Furthermore, the population of systems has been massively increased and is now linked to production, and that is a good thing. Production has been increased to values that are actually useful for larger markets, which was not the case before patch. That's a good thing. Number of good news. On the bad news, mixed economies have not been fixed. And that is one of the two major things that are currently crippling the system of Trailblazers of economies, because it really doesn't help to have 4 economies on an Earth-like world or 2 on a rocky ice world, where the economies produced by one market cannibalize the commodities produced by the other market, and the same is true for demand. Again, I've tried to explain it in a simple way, but if you take an industrial an industrial market that produces, say for sake of argument, 100 tons of power generators and demands 100 tons of steel, and now suddenly you couple it with a refinery economy, which does the opposite. It produces 100 tons of steel and demands 100 tons of power generators. Guess what happens in the current system? Well, the port demands nothing and produces nothing. And the way that these mixed economies stack or net out in the current system that was not fixed in this patch makes it so that a very, very small number of planet types are worth colonizing at this point. In particular, you only want to colonize high metal content worlds, ice worlds, and rocky worlds, which do not have organics or geologicals, as those kind of mess with economies and start making different economies popping up. Everything else is undesirable. Rocky ice worlds, forget about them. Earth-like worlds come with major downsides. Ammonia worlds, also not ideal. Like, there's a lot of things that are really, I think that haven't really been thought through in terms of like how they actively work in practice. I think the idea was more markets, better, but the problem is more markets, worse right now, because again, supply and demand net out. So I don't think that was thought through. We flagged this multiple times, but this is something honestly that FDev hasn't listened to us, and I don't know why. Either they didn't feel it was important, or maybe they plan on fixing it at a later date. I don't know. But without a fix on these mixed economies, the viability of colonization as a whole is crushingly diminished, as having more than one economy in a market, with very rare exceptions. Like, for example, you can put extraction and refinery together and it's not the end of the world. You can put agriculture and refinery together and it's not the end of the world. But start mixing in high-tech, industrial, military, and everything goes sideways. So anyway, this is something that for us to get to a stable, final, reliable colonization system in this game, we need a fix for mixed economies. We need an undo cancel button, which again has not been changed in the patch. And we'll get in a moment. We need to deal with a new construction situation. So new construction, all of the changes with over links and basically the whole new system have been retroactively applied to all markets in the galaxy. That's a good thing. It's like one of the problems we were facing earlier is that changes were not immediately being applied, and you actually had to build something, which was not always possible for changes to register on a given market. I've had multiple reports of people building new things since the patch, and those new developments still following the old system. So being colony type ports, the links not being created. In fact, in some cases, the creation of something new in a particular slot resulting in existing links being overwritten or canceled. There is some kind of fundamental bug and issue regarding new construction at this time, which again is crippling for economies, because it's certainly not working as intended, and it is something that needs serious looking into. for colonization to work going forward. Those are probably the three things that really, really, really need to be fixed, in which just result in a system that still doesn't work despite the best attempt at making it work. With mixed economies, with new construction not working, with mixed economies not working, with new construction not working, and with a lack of an undo and cancel button, I don't think we can call the system truly at scale functional. The rest is minor. The belt stations, like stations that were incorrectly placed in asteroid belts or in rings that weren't supposed to be there. In the patch notes leading up to the patch, they said those were going to be moved. In my experience, in none of the three systems where I have that issue, where I have a station that ended up in an asteroid belt that wasn't supposed to be there, none of those three were moved. So that was not done. Is it the end of the world? No. Is it supposed to be that way? No. Is it something that makes or breaks the game? Also probably not. At some point, it's something that should be fixed. But again, it's nothing near the first couple of things I talked about in terms of severity of an issue. There was also another bug with regards to how the way the planetary ports pass on strong links to spaceports that are above them. It should be that planetary ports pass on strong links that are formed by planetary installations or settlements, sorry, planetary settlements to the planetary port, and those strong links are then passed on to the spaceport above them. At least that's the intent based on the patch notes. However, that doesn't happen, at least in my experience with all the data I've seen. What happens is instead what is passed on is the planetary characteristics. So for instance, I have a planet that is a high metal content world with organics. So it has extraction, terraforming, and agriculture as planetary economies. And those are the ones that are passed on as strong links to the spaceport. The result is that the spaceport gets double the effects of the planet. So the planetary port has a value of 1 for agriculture and terraforming and 1.4 for extraction. And the spaceport has strong links coming from the planet in addition to the planetary values. So the value for the spaceport is more than double that because the strong links are actually subject to the bonuses from the planet as well. So it has a value of 2.2 for terraforming, 2.2 for agriculture, and I can't even remember what it is for extraction, but it is some other high number. But nevertheless, the point being is currently planetary bonuses are double counted on spaceports that have an underlying planetary port, and I don't think that's intended. So that's something that should be fixed. But again, does this make or break the game? Not really. And again, it's just something that ought to be fixed at some point, but not the, oh my God, this doesn't work kind of situation that we have, for instance, with mixed economies in new construction. Those are the sort of good news, bad news. In addition, there's a number of neutral things that are important to kind of just mention and for people to be aware of because they matter. I've gotten a lot of reports that scientific outposts do not have commodity markets active anymore after the patch. I honestly don't know if that is intended or not. I've had people come and tell me, oh, that's actually how it's supposed to work. As an NPC, scientific outposts actually don't have a commodity market. I haven't personally validated if that's true or not. Maybe you can let me know in the comments below what your experience is and what you think. But if you have a scientific outpost and your market has suddenly disappeared, you're not alone. And there's a question out there on whether that's intended or not. A lot of commanders are seeing their shipyards being disabled, especially in stations that are standalone Coriolis or orbit stations that are have been built in a system. That is as intended. As a reminder, the expectation is that you need a technology level of at least 35 and a station with large landing pads for shipyards to be active on that station. That is by design, and it's been reported by Phil, or I think it was Phil or Paul or Phil. Someone reported it on the Frontier forums. If someone wants to find the link to the post, we can post it in the chat comments below. But that is by design. So if you build a single Coriolis and that's all you have in the system, don't be surprised if your shipyard has gone inactive because that is by design. That being said, it is kind of inconsistent. So chances are you might still have a standalone Coriolis with an active shipyard. That's actually not intended to be that way. So count yourself lucky if you do. There's a number of things that we're still confirming and that we don't know at this time. We don't know if a station placement bug has been fixed. I don't have enough reports of people trying to build new things, considering also everything else that we just talked about. There's not a lot of construction activity going on. So I can't tell you if a placement bug has been fixed or not. Reportedly, it has from the patch notes. But again, we like to verify things rather than just rely on what's written in there, because as this conversation is telling you, sometimes reality differs from what's intended and what's written in the patch notes. We also are still studying the exact values that are contributed to economies by planetary values, by strong links of various nature from various type of facilities, and the respective modifiers and how those influence them. We have a good amount of data, but we're also missing a lot of data. I want to say we have about 60% of what I would call a complete data set right now. And there's still a lot of things that we're struggling to kind of make full sense of. So we do need more data. If you want to contribute, join the colonization department on the Canon Discord. That's the place where we're having most of these conversations. And we have a number of forums and places that we're using to gather data in the most sort of meaningful, comprehensive, and reliable fashion. So thank you to all the community for your contributions, as this is only doable if we do this as a group. No single person will possibly have enough stations and ports to make sense of it all. So again, thank you for participating in the science and research around all of this. That's all I have for today. So bittersweet news. Apologies if it's not all kind of like fun and games, but I will say thank you to the guys at Frontier for giving it a shot and making an attempt at significantly overhauling the system. I think this is progress. I think this is going in the right direction, and it's really nice to see. There are some major good things, including the fix of the status bug and the enhancement of a Corsair. I really like the Lynx system. I think once the mixed economy and new construction matters are fixed, the system has incredible potential to be really good, especially if we get a cancel market and we can rework things. But it needs more work. It needs more time in the oven still. And the direction and issues that we mentioned today, I would argue, are the most important things with regards to what needs to happen for it to finally work in a consistent and reliable fashion. That's all I got for you guys. Go remain kind. Let me know in the comments below what your experience is, and Commander Mechan over and out.